Welcome to Room to Grow with your ally Chad, a podcast where a white privileged male, me, invites people to teach him as much as they can about the sensitive subjects that are prominent in today's society, such as racism, women's rights, addiction, and mental health. This podcast is for open-minded people who want the information that is out there but don't know where to look. My name is Chad Moores. Join me and let's learn and grow together. Hello and welcome back to Room to Grow with your ally Chad. Today we are joined with Anastasia Williams, a Democrat who represents District 9 in Providence, Rhode Island, chair of the House Labor Committee and a member of countless other committees dedicated to making a difference in Rhode Island. Welcome, Anastasia, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Chad. Pleasure to be here.
I'm glad. So before we dive into the questions I have for you, please give us a bit of your story and what led you to being Rhode Island State Representative.
Well, first, it's going to be a long story, but I'm going to bring it right to the point. I grew up in a family of integrity, courage, and loyalty to giving of oneself. And I've always seen that as being part of life. And so when my dad retired from the military and came back to Rhode Island, to his home state, I saw a lot of things that were going on in the neighborhood, and I just plunged in to take part. And someone observed, matter of fact, it was then Representative Frank Caprio, and for 2 years, he was in the neighborhood, and he reached out and asked me if I would like to run for a newly created district, and the rest is history. I took on the challenge, and voila, here it is. I am here 30 years later, still representing this district number 9.
And what do you think, excuse me, my Facebook is going off, go away. So what do you think led you to win the election for being a state representative?
Because I was given. I was like a troubleshooter. I had organized in the community. We were living in slum conditions in the housing complex called Wigan Village. And I just started door knocking and asking people were they faced with real bad conditions, living conditions, and they said yes. So I gathered up, we had a meeting, I organized and brought it to the attention of HUD in Washington. They took a hard look at it and said we were correct, and I made the changes beginning that. So people just saw that I was an individual committed to making their lives better, and they gave me the opportunity to represent them when that chance came, when I was extended an opportunity to run for state representative.
That's very cool. So before we actually get to the questions that I have for you, I'm going to try something new for all of my interviews. I'm actually going to do something which I call a hard icebreaker. So it's kind of a hard question, and I'm hoping to see how you respond to it. So that's what I decided I'm going to start doing moving forward. So the question is, if you had to change your race, what would you choose?
If I had to change my race?
Yes, if you had to.
What would I choose? That's really interesting. I've only known and only been, as I am, biracial, multicultural, all that loveliness. So to say what I would want, which one I would choose is it's kind of hard for me to say. I can certainly elaborate a little bit more that I'm not certain that I would want to be Ghanaian or Indian or Caucasian because of the hardship that they're faced. So I know my hardship as a person of color, and the other ones that I would look to are in similar situation, with the exception of the white race, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't realistically say, yeah, I would want to be in the white race. And that's not to say it's a bad thing or a good thing, because realistically, based on where I am and what my experiences have been, my father, my grandfather, and so on and so forth, it hasn't been too good with the white race. So I wouldn't want to say that that's the race that I would want to be in, or the other ones that I had mentioned either, because of the hardship, either way.
I know, and it is. That's kind of why the question I wanted to ask is because it is a difficult question. You know, it's not a straightforward answer for, I think, most people, because why would you want to change your race to be something that almost feels like maybe they're the reason that you are living the way that you are and the difficulties that you have. So you saying that I want to be Caucasian, you know, do I want to be part of the problem? I mean, to a certain extent, you know what I mean? So, but then also at the other hand, I can see somebody taking advantage of it and being like, you know, I wouldn't mind trying it for a day or two and just seeing, like, even if they're not somebody that would like steal or something like that, they'd probably like go into a store and be like, I wonder if I'm gonna get away with this. I'm pretty sure I will. If I just if I don't have to do anything. I can just walk out and no one would bat an eye. You know what I mean?
Right, but and I understand exactly what you're saying. However, it's not to say that every Caucasian person is a bad person, because they're not. The hardship that people of color have endured because of Caucasian community has been really bad. However, it doesn't mean that everyone in that race is bad, and I don't look at it that way.
Right, and I mean, it's that's what I think we're trying to get at now, is that, you know, if I'm walking into a store and I have kind of a weird exchange with somebody who happens to be black, am I, and I didn't really appreciate it, I didn't like it, is it because they were black? No, it's not because they were black. You know, and that's something that I think people sometimes have a hard time kind of seeing. Does that make sense? Am I saying it
Yeah,
right?
that makes sense, but it's by you not being black and you did that exchange, you don't understand, or you don't realize what that person of color have received from
Mm-hmm.
your interaction. Your intention may not have been in a negative way, but it was given that way. It was received that way, by virtue of many other um, individuals that have reacted in that same manner for a bad intention. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, and that's kind of the hard thing, is that I know there's so many people out there that want to change, that want to be a better person and not be racist and stuff like that, but because of how we were brought up, because of our society, it's not easy to break. I mean, you know, if you've ever seen Avenue Q, I mean, everybody is a little bit racist, doesn't matter who you are. If it's a very difficult thing and you don't want to be. I know, here's a funny example for me, is that I will be way more excited to talk to somebody of a different ethnicity than I should be. It's kind of like if, for instance, a somebody from the LGBTQ community winning an Oscar for the first time. It's like this huge deal. Right now it needs to be a huge deal because it is a huge deal. But I'm hoping to get to the day where it's not a big deal. You know, but I love those. So going back to what I'm saying is that I have a good interaction with somebody that's not a white male, and I get pretty excited about it, you know, and I'm like, look at me, you know, and it is showboating. I can't help it. That's just what it is.
It's anything good and positive should be a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of who's it is falling upon or receiving or it's being by and all that. Um, but we have to really embrace where we're at and where we have been. We have to look at the past in order to better understand where we're standing and looking towards the future, what we would like that to look, appear to be, look like, and be part of. And unfortunately, some people are not willing to open up to that room to grow. They're not interested. They're like, this is what I know. I'm comfortable with this, and that's all it's going to be. And it's unfortunate that I keep saying to my colleagues and to neighbors, and while I was campaigning, it's like, listen, one size does not fit all. And diversity in our communities is wonderful. Learning from each other is great, but you have to be willing, you have to be open to it, and realize that there are other differences in your neighborhood, in your city, in your state. And that's what makes us great and makes us unique, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We're looking for a better life. We're looking to be happy. We're looking, to raise a family. We're looking for all the goodness. So if you're not willing to open your heart and mind towards something like that, it's not going to come to you. And you can't, just because you feel a certain kind of way, you should not infringe on anyone else who's trying to achieve those goals and dreams. And they rightfully deserve it and should have it if they're working hard towards it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Something that I've mentioned quite a few times on this podcast is that I know people who, they seem very liberal. They are friends with the LGBT community. They're friends with other ethnicities or whatever it might be, and you think they have pretty big views. But when they do say something that is ignorant, something that they're not in the know of, they get very defensive when you say, "Well, why don't you think about?" No, no, I'm not prejudiced, and it's like, you're not willing to, if you're not willing to hear it, then I don't really know, I can't help you. But then there's people like my dad who grew up a certain way, but when he says something, my wife and I can be like, hey, just what do you think of this information that I'm giving to you? And he goes, I never thought of it that way. And whether he changed his mind or not is, anybody's guess, but he's willing to listen, he's willing to grow, he's willing to be a better human being. So that's kind of the interesting thing there.
It's good to listen, but it's better to hear what's being said. Mm-hmm. Because you can listen to someone talk and you can ask them a question after you're finished, and, can you say that again now? Because they weren't hearing a word. And that's often the case for individuals who are focused in their way, their time, their issues, their situation, period. And you can't begrudge them, but it comes a time when you have to, get involved with your surroundings, like it or not, because it affects you. It can affect you in a positive way or in a negative way. If we work together, things can definitely happen in a positive way all the time. We can work together, what they say, teamwork makes the dream work. I'm looking out for you when you're gone, you do the same for me. We go ahead and one hand washes the other in many instances, many, many more. There are more commonalities than there are differences amongst our neighbors, our friends, our city, our state. But there are those that just aren't interested. They're grown. They don't have no room to grow. They're like, I've been there, done that. I'm all that. It wasn't my fault. I don't care about that. You do yours, stay in your place. But it shouldn't be like that. It should not be like that at all. And then there are many of them. You said about the liberals. Malcolm X was a staunch speaker about liberals. He often stated that liberals are more dangerous than Democratic conservative. And it's like, whoa, that's heavy. You can, look up some of his speeches, and he talks about that often. Martin Luther King did the same thing. It's like, liberals, they're dangerous. They'll lead you to believe that they're your friends, they're your allies, they like you, but it's all wolves in sheep clothing, So realistically, it's like, based on their experience back then, those are messages. And what's happening now, we need to question, how much have we all grown since then? how much are we willing to grow now moving forward? There are too many offsprings of evil that are still present and want to take charge of, no, this is the way and the only way. This is the race and the only race. And it's like, we're all in it together, regardless whether you like my race or not. We're all in it together.
Mm-hmm. We're all here. And
We're
none
all
of us are
here.
going anywhere.
All right.
So, moving on to my next question here. When did you learn that the world was unjust and unfair?
When my dad moved back to Rhode Island, and I saw, and I was put into Catholic school, private Catholic school, which I enjoyed. However, talk about a time where folks, my peers in school, my classmates, they were, now as an adult, I see where they were calling me all these names, the N-word to be specific. And it was coming from their homes. We would take the bus. I would be told, I can't sit with you. We can't talk to you, and so forth and so on. So I realized that it was like, not only is this country cold in temperature, but cold with the people, adults and kids alike. Looking back, it was like, oh my God, Dad, you was enduring all this stuff back home, in Panama when we were there. It was like, good morning, how you doing? The strangers. What I do the comparison to the southern states that I have traveled to, it's always good day, hello, good morning. So back there in Panama, it was friendly. You didn't have to know each other to say hello to. Here, it's entirely different. In America, it was like, oh, baby. Here in Rhode Island, it was, oh, no. Cold, ice, cold, 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 cold. And in many instances, right here, District 9, certain areas, it's still very cold. They see you, they'll cross the street, that you're walking with your dog, or you're just walking with your partner, and they'll cross the street, or they'll walk right past you. I make it my business. Hey, how you doing? Did I not do that to you?
Yeah, you actually asked me to come over and do manual labor.
Yes.
And I loved it. I loved it
Yes.
so much. So I grew up in a neighborhood where you just went over to people's houses. I remember I used to go over to this house down the street, and I'd just walk into their back door, and I'd be like, "Hey, do you have any Oreos?" And then I'd go over to my other neighbor's house on this side and be like, "Hey, you want to go on a walk?" Or I made dinner. Do you want to come over? And we'd have big block parties and all that kind of stuff. Like that's so when you did that to me, I just instantly gravitated towards you. I was on the phone with somebody and I was like, I gotta go. Someone's being nice to me.
That's a normal. That's the norm. That's the way that I grew up. I have a alter ego that I call Shanae. And Shanae comes out when people are being mean and ugly and distasteful. It's like, oh, no, we're not having that. Shanae comes out and, she takes charge and she puts them folks in play. And it's not that Shanae is lying about anything. She comes straight to you and corrects it, and puts it into perspective as this is our reality. You may not have never encountered, and probably will never encounter the hardship that we do go through on a daily basis. So don't say to me what is best for me. We can have a conversation on what my situation is and maybe what direction I should go or consider going. But don't tell me you need to do this, that, because you don't know if I tried that already. Right. You don't know if I'm strong enough to do that. So let's have a conversation. There should always be room to grow on both sides. Listen to me and I'll listen to you. Hear each other's point of view. respect. When you trust somebody, it doesn't matter who they are, where they come from. You present yourself the way you are. I learn you, you learn me, and then we go from there.
Right. And for me, what you just said to people that do maybe come to you and say like maybe you should do this or maybe you should do that, you're not trying to be rude by saying that. You're just saying it's one of those things where you're correcting them. It's just like, hey, if you want to help, this is that's again why I do this, is because I want to be in a space where I'm not afraid to make a mistake and say something wrong, as long as that person that I'm with is willing to correct me and help me.
Folks are finding themselves now, especially since George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. They're very concerned about what they say. If they're saying it wrong, they don't want to be offensive. But it's nothing wrong with you asking a question of something that you're not sure of. Mm-hmm. It's better for you to ask the question, have the conversation about it, than to feel comfortable with your race and have that conversation. And then when you're out with a different race, you get it wrong. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's like, hey, I have plenty of room to grow, but in my surroundings, there's still people that have much more room to grow than I, and they're not willing to allow themselves to do that.
Yeah. So, kind of going off on what we're talking about, how do we inspire the white community to own the whole of American's history and pursue equality?
I do not believe that white America will embrace the fact of what took place, what is taking place, and what could continue to take place. Change is hard for some. Many people are, persistent in saying, well, I didn't do it, so it's not my fault. And it's not necessarily pinpointing blame to any one particular person, but just looking at history, knowing the real history, knowing about the real history opposed to the one that they've been teaching to us in school for far too long, and embrace it. How can we do better from here? What is better for you? For example, I am who I am. I know whose I am. I'm not by any means perfect. Each one of us on this earth, I believe, has something to offer. It does not necessarily mean it fits your square block or your oblong or your circle or what have you. But each one of us has something to offer. But just imagine all of us, or a number of us, connecting. We can make things happen. If we are looking to better our community, we all live in the neighborhood. So why can't we all be included in whatever changes or needs in the community? Why is it always has to be us and them kind of situation? And that's what I'm finding that has been going on for far too long. The us and them don't trust each other, and for good reasons, and it's unfortunate. And when I, as an elected official, the representative of the community or the district, make it known, the white community, not all of them, but a good number of them who has claimed status in the areas, feel that I don't have the right to tell it like it is, because they're not ready to accept it. But it's our reality, and unless we tell you how it is happening, you're not going to know. You're assuming, because you're not coming out. You're not willing to grow. You're not coming out of your circle. You're not coming out of your comfort zone. You're not coming out and ask those hard questions. You're not coming out and having that conversation because you're comfortable where you're at and with whom you're all at. So it's sad that year after year, sometimes month, sometimes weeks after weeks, I repeat the same things to the same people, and they repeat the same old stuff. And then when the needs assessment is out there, they include us in that and paperwork. When it's time to get the DOLLARS, we're in there like Prego, baby. We're in there. But it's like, okay, use me. Don't abuse me. If I'm part of this community, I want to be part of it in its entirety. I don't want to be part of it just when it's convenient for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying the same taxes as you. I go to the same markets as you. I drive on the same roads as you. I walk the same sidewalks as you. My grass grows the same way as yours. The rain falls on my roof just like yours. So come on. Why is it has to be a us and them? It's sad. It's really sad.
It is sad.
Why do I have to get Shanae out? And then
Mm-hmm.
people get offended, like, that's a little bit too, yeah, what's wrong with her? Oh, no, she scares me. Oh, yeah. I'm not trying to scare anybody.
You're just trying to get it out there.
It's like, it's right in front of their faces, and they're ignoring it and pretending that it doesn't exist. What it's like for a mother to wait for her child to come in the door, and you don't know if they're going to come into the door. You don't know, you know where they're at, but they may be with a friend, and things happen.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, just kind of going off of what you just mentioned, I was in New York for a couple of weeks doing a show, and it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm on the phone with my friend Rob, and I'm just walking around the streets of the Bronx. And I didn't have a care in the world. And I did the same thing when I came back, because I had moved to New York for 2 weeks, like 3 days after I moved to Rhode Island. And then when I got home, I got used to doing those evening walks. So I started doing it around our neighborhood. And, at midnight or whatever. And my wife said, oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't feel safe. I wouldn't do it unless you were with me. And I'm like, oh no, it's great. And she goes, you're a male. You're a white male. Nothing's going to happen to you, pretty much. Like the odds of that happening is way lower than my Asian wife going on a walk. And I really didn't understand that until she had kind of said it. And it's sad that she can't enjoy the things that I can enjoy without it, because I am a white privileged male, But
you see, someone brought it to your attention for you to take a minute to think about it. And then when you gave that minute to think about it, you was like, folks, there's a lot of folks that are not interested in thinking about it at all. And even when you say something to them, she and I had a fight. That's the latest one, because I made a comment with regards to, the changes of the community. And I'm like, it's great, but I only see white faces. Why is it that it's always the same white faces and I'm the only one of color in the room for things that matters to all of us in the community? It's why? And everybody's looking at me like, what is she talking about? Because they're comfortable with having their conversation. And then when it's all said and done and they go on about their way, their interpretation of me asking the question or saying, you only notice us when you want to use us on a proposal. You only notice us when it's time to have a street cleaning, or you only use us when you need some window dressing. Hey. And then it turns out to be, well, oh, she was there fighting. Oh, she was fighting with us. By virtue of telling the reality of the daily struggles that we have faced with the same people over and over and over again. It's the same ones. And and what they do when they leave there, they go and they plant those negative seeds to others that weren't there. And they just take it on and they run with it. And that just shows me how we can't trust them. And it becomes that us and them scenario based on their behavior, based on what they show us, based on what they do to us. And it's like, you expect me to trust you? You expect me to be, hi, how are you doing? Yes. Okay, what are we going to do next? Do you have two more brooms? Because I recruited two other individuals to come and sweep up your sidewalk. It's like, okay, what? You decided, you made all these decisions, and you made the decision, but it's supposed to be we made the decision. So it's sad. It's really sad. So walking and taking your walk, your wife taking your walk, it better be light out for sure. Don't let dust go down and be in the neighborhood, for sure.
Well, when moving to Providence, I was excited for the diversity. My wife had kind of said, like, well, it's going to be different because I've lived in Maine, I've lived in Massachusetts, I've lived in New Hampshire, primarily white communities. And then she said, we're moving to Providence and the diversity is much bigger. And I was excited. At one point, I remember it was a culture shock for me, because one time I walked into a supermarket not realizing it was a Spanish supermarket, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. But then I was excited about it because I was, for like one of the first times in my life, I was the minority. That doesn't happen often to me. So, but then I was no one understood what I was saying because most of them didn't speak fluent English like myself or my wife. And everybody was kind of staring at me. It was just kind of, I was, it's so, I don't know. It was so different than what I've ever experienced before. I've never experienced anything like this. And then there's also, this because you live on the same strip as I do. You walk out the back door and it's beautiful. There's trees and the lights are, everything's lit and it's beautiful, and it's a really nice walk if you want to go out either, during the day and whatever. And then you go out the front door and it's a completely different atmosphere.
And that was strategically done that way. Trust
Mm-hmm.
and believe. And that's another story for another podcast one day, because of the fact it was done on Bridgham Street and it was done on Cranston Street until everything, even Westminster Street to a degree, but until everything got, okay, now we can take over the rest of the areas, and this is how we're going to do it. So it was strategically done. Again, us and them, and it shouldn't be that way. Us
No.
and them, and like you said, it's a big difference. It's like, wow.
What a difference 50 feet makes. I
Yeah.
remember when we came to see the place that I'm living in now, and somebody was with us and they said, oh my God, this is a wonderful area. You go over here and there's a park and there's the dog park and there's bike trails and this and that. Don't go over here. Don't go over here.
Yeah.
Don't even look over there. Don't do it. But oh my God, this is great and beautiful. And I'm telling you, don't go over there. The person said it like 20 times. I was like, okay, weird. Okay, I won't go that way. But I did. And I understood what she was saying, but it's frustrating.
And it's nothing wrong with over there.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with over there. It's just that bad negative seed that they have planted throughout the years to say the us and them. We are privileged. We're going to do some great things around here. We are the ones. They are them. Stay over there. And that's the continuation throughout the years. And then, you can feel when someone doesn't want you around. You know what I mean? You can feel it. So it's a situation where I'm going to speak it. I'm going to tell it to you. I know you don't like to hear it, but at the end of the day, that's our daily struggle. It's caused by you. You're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. You claim it. You claim it. You have the Black Lives Matter right in your window. Shoops. But it's like, it matters when. When does it matter? Is that your contribution? Putting the poster up in your window? Is that your contribution? All our lives matter. All of our lives matter every single day. And we need to embrace that. We're here. We're in it together, realistically together. But if you don't have that trust, and if you're not working towards building that trust with each other, it's going to remain the way it is, or even get worse, because every day you hear something bad happen and it's getting worse. It's about trust, inclusion, equity, social justice, home ownership. It's about a lot of things that we work together and we can come back together and fix. But when you have that attitude, well, I'm privileged, us and then don't go over that way. Don't go over that way. It's going to only get worse, and we're going to be stagnant. Those that can afford it will get out of it and be able to be in the crowd. But even in the crowd, they're not going to accept you because you're not one of them. I've been living where I'm living now for over 20 years. And trust and believe, long before any of them have been around here in this particular neighborhood. And are they inclusive? Are they inviting? Are they kind? A good portion of them are. They're genuine. They're very nice. When I say, hey, how you doing? They respond. Some of them don't respond. Like I say, they cross the street. And trust and believe, even on the same street that we're both on. So it's like, hey, one day they'll respond, but I accept who they are.
Yeah, I know that there's a difference between when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I have to do is walk my dog. So sometimes I'll go in my white t-shirt, and, my hair's kind of in disarray, and so I look not my best. And I notice that when I'm walking down the street looking like that, people do cross the street. They don't want to talk to me. And then when I'm walking my dog in the afternoon, I have my hair done like this. I have a nice shirt on like this. And people are, hello, how are you? Nice to see you, and all that stuff. I'm like, there really is a difference. And, that's just unfortunately how it is. So.
But I can go in a t-shirt, I can go in a dress. I can't remove my blackness. So They're going to move across, they're going to walk across, they're going to stop and go back into their house, or they will not open up the door. So, and that's the reality, but yet and still, I still am me. I'm still going to say, hey, how you doing? I'll still do all of those things. But unfortunately, I can't, make them respond. I can't make them be kind. I can't make them understand where we're coming from. At the end of the day, they are who they are. They're comfortable with it, and I will respect that. But don't infringe.
But you can go out there and reach out every time. There's no harm in that.
Yeah, I do go out and reach out, and I'm still human, and my feelings do get hurt when they don't reach back. Mm-hmm. So it shouldn't always be a one-way street, but I will always extend myself. And then, after the second time and maybe even the third time, I ain't going there again. I'll go past your door, but I'm not saying nothing to you again, because I see that you don't want to speak, and I'm going to respect that you don't want to speak to me for whatever reason. Hey, it is what it is.
Right.
But because I was raised in that environment, hello, you speak, you're kind, you're nice, and all that stuff. Sometimes you have to, like Michelle Obama said, when they go low, you go high. And I said, I agree, but sometimes you got to go low with them to let them see that, yeah, is this where you want to be? Then that's fine. I'm not coming back down low with you. This is where I'm saying, see you later.
So many of us concentrate on the negative things that are going on around the world. But I was wondering what try to get some positivity in here when I can. What do you think has happened in the last year or so that has been positive change?
In the community, in the state, in the city?
It's where, when I ask these questions, you can take it however you like and answer that way.
Um, I think that some people have embraced the reality that once they did not. What I mean by that is some folks have seen the hate that they were distributing unintentionally and have made the effort to correct it. I've had folks say that to me. I didn't realize. I have had people say, I'm sorry. And, I've responded to say to them, it wasn't your fault, but I appreciate you having enough courage to have thought about it and coming to talk to me about it. So it's rewarding and refreshing when that occurs, you know. So things like that and individuals like those were positive things that I encountered, and it's still going, because there's still many people that still talk about it. They have gotten comfortable to speak further with me and others of different encounters that they overlooked or just didn't care about because it wasn't affecting them. So I think that's the positiveness. A lot of them have gone to the further left to say, yeah. So it's like, oh boy,
Yeah.
shoots.
I know, because some people are like, "Oh, look at this! I can go this way," and then they'll be like, "You're going that way? Well, then I'm going even further that way."
Yeah.
That does happen, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So, you also wanted to talk about blind loyalty. It's something that you wanted to talk about today. You mentioned it. I actually had no idea what it was, which is, my curiosity got the best of me. I did a little bit of research, but I wasn't really sure where to go with any questions about that, so I want to kind of to give you the floor on that and give us a little bit of what's going on with that subject and what your stance is.
Blind loyalty, the definition from my perspective is any individual or entity or more group that you have a trust. If you trust someone, anything that they say to you, mostly anything and everything they say to you, you believe them. You have absolutely no reason not to believe them. So then you take what they have presented to you as fact. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it is factual, but that other individual may have a hidden agenda and know that you trust them, and they're going to plant that negative seed into any and everyone they know will listen.
It's almost like when you have a child, pretty much anything, even if you can say anything to your own child and it's going to be received as truth.
Right, exactly. So they will take that fake narrative and pass it on to the next and to the next and to the next. They will react based on that information, that blind loyalty. I did it because he or she told me. And it's like a cancer, because just because you're my best friend does not mean that you don't lie, don't mean that you don't make mistakes, don't mean that you don't have a hidden agenda. All those things. None of us are perfect, but some of us are trifling, so blind loyalty, I'll do anything. You just tell me I got your back. I got your back. I'll do it. I'll take care of it. Just because you're my friend, just because I trust you, not because it's true, not because it's the right thing to do, just because you're my friend. Blind loyalty. You could hurt somebody based on what that person you trust told you.
Wow. Yeah, it's something I've never heard of before, and I can completely see that being something that happens. I mean, it's almost like when you support incoming or somebody that's trying to become president or something like that, you support them so much that it doesn't really matter what they say. It's there, you're going to believe in that. You're going to maybe even change the way that you think, and not even think about what your own opinion could be. It's whatever they say.
Right. It happens more often than not. In the us and them kind of situation, that's how it is. You're doing it not because you want to do it. You're doing it because you trust and believe that person that's telling you to do it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and trust. It's sad, but it's a reality.
So, is there anything that people could be doing to maybe understand that more and break away from that?
They need to talk about it. They need to ask questions. Just don't take what's being told to you to be the gospel, to be the truth. Why are you doing that? Why are you saying that? What's going on? They're not asking the question. It's, again, the us and them, the us and them. This is how we need, because if we allow them, it's going to be chaotic. At one point, this neighborhood, this is the West End. Some folks decided to call it the West Side, not legally, but the West Side. Why? The question was asked, and the response was, because we do not want to be associated with graffiti, prostitution, and drugs. And it was like, oh, so that's how you identify us. We didn't have a say in the changes that you all were looking to do or wanted to get involved with. As the elected official, I always try to gather people, gather all of us. Let's hear the differences, you know what I mean? Because there are many. But that doesn't mean that it can't work out, it won't work out, and we're not looking for the same thing. It doesn't mean that at all. But we don't even get a chance. It's about us and them. It's always about us and them. It's sad. So when is it going to change? I don't know.
So that's pretty much all the questions I had for you. I would like to give you the floor for like the next 10 minutes, and there's plenty I'm sure that you have to say. So if there's anything in particular that you are passionate about, something that you want that we haven't kind of discussed yet, that you want people to kind of leave this podcast having a better understanding of, that would be really good.
I would like to, folks, not only in my community, our community, and in the other abutting side of Providence, the city, to participate more in their civic responsibility. Not enough of us, not enough people participate in it. I would want to see more trust, that the people will have more trust in our elected officials and our government. And unfortunately, it's declining more and more, and for good reasons too, because of many things that have happened in the past, things that are happening right now. The educational system is like kaput. Social promotion continues in high numbers. And again, in the urban communities, it's like history repeating itself year after year. In the judicial system, same thing, and it's like everybody's talking about it's broken, it's broken, it's broken. It's not broken. It's set up the way that they want it to be set up to benefit a particular group of individuals, but it's just disappointing a lot of times, because there are a lot of good people in the state of Rhode Island. Some real good people, good hearted, good thinking, good in general.
I have actually been extremely happy with most of the interactions that I have in Rhode Island. I'll be honest with you. I lived in Mass, as I said. I lived in Maine. I lived in New Hampshire. I even lived in New York for a little while, for about 6 months. And I was really nervous about living in a city. That's not really something I've ever done before. It's always been, very different from what we're doing now. But it's been absolutely wonderful in most respects, to be honest with you. Being able to just strike up conversation with random people. I went into a coffee shop the other day and someone mentioned a donut shop from Maine, which is a place I lived right down the street from. I ended up talking to them for like 20 minutes. I never met these people in my life, but because they said that, I was like, oh, I love that place. And so we ended up talking, and you go to the grocery store and you just people are smiling at me and I'm waving and, making friendly talk in the lines and everything like that. I mean, I know that is different based off of the areas.
Absolutely.
I know it's different. Trust me, because I go to the Family Dollar Tree down the street from us.
Yeah.
I go in there and people try to strike up conversation with me, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of the times, depending on who they are or what they look like or what they're saying to me or how they sound, because maybe it seems like they're on drugs or whatever it might be, they seem a little crazy. I mean, I kind of guess them, I nod, I smile, but I don't feel as comfortable. That's just the plain fact there. That's a plain fact. It's terrible. It's terrible that I feel that way. I feel going anywhere else in the area, but when I go there, which, is the only time I really go around into that area, I don't feel as comfortable.
And, and I go in there and I feel fine. I go fine. I go
exactly.
Up the street, and there is the other one, and they're watching me. They're watching me. So it's like, they don't watch you in the same neighborhood market, and then you go over the other way, and it's like,
Yep.
It's very interesting, though.
I know. I mean, it's crazy how that kind of stuff ends up happening. I want to feel more comfortable in there. And I do go out of my way to talk to as many people as I can, unless, if they're coming in and they're clearly like wasted or whatever it might be. And that would be anywhere, not so much this location specifically, but when people come up, I had the first time I ever went in there, this woman was like hanging on top of me and like touching my stuff and like putting her stuff next to mine at the register. And I was like, what are you doing? I was like, just like, God, like, what are you doing? And then other times I go there and I'm like trying to smile more to like the cashiers and, I don't know, but it shouldn't be this difficult, but it is.
I know, but that makes our community and our daily routines interesting as well, so one day it'll change for our children and our grandchildren and others, but right now we're doing the best with what we have.
I know. I mean, change is happening, change is going on. People are saying that, millennials and lower are too sensitive, and it's not so much about being sensitive, it's what I call overcorrection. And it's needed right now in order to get change to come faster.
Yeah.
So, maybe they are being a little not insensitive. Maybe they are being a little, I forgot, I lost the word, but basically the overcorrection is needed right now in order to make because we can't just keep, having this go on like this. Unfortunately, we need to pick it up and start bringing it over here. And, and maybe however many years it takes. So let me just give a figurative number, but 10 years from now, we can kind of calm it down a little bit and not be so much
10 years, boy, shoot. That's a long time.
I know. I'm just giving a figurative number.
I know. I'm kidding.
So before we go, is there anything you wanted to plug? And what I mean by that is there any TED Talks you've been listening to that have some great perspective, or a book, or is there any person that people could look up and all that kind of stuff?
I think, I sponsored a bill to have Black history be taught in schools. And it would be really interesting for folks to, check out Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, several Black authors, and there are many. Maya Angelou. I mean, that's just a few. But they talked about the real daily struggles and in plain English, so it was clear. When in a time where Black folks were not allowed to speak their minds per se, without getting reprimanded or killed in some fashion or another. But and there's so many truths in those books, in those speeches, that rings true today. And I just wish folks would take the time to have the conversation with your neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is, Chad. It is what it is. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm hoping that you'll come back once you win the election again. And
yes, baby, yes.
And teach us a little bit more. I would really, really appreciate that. So thank you so much for your time today.
Room to grow. I think it's like more folks around here need to open up to that fact and stop embracing blind loyalty and missing out on the real good opportunities of knowing their neighbors, really knowing their neighbors, opposed to sticking to that friend who carries plants and embraces hate. Let them go to the other side and get to know the real folks around you. Variety is the spice of life.
What would you think about me trying to I want to get myself more out there. So for me specifically, what can you see myself doing more of that I should really be doing? Maybe putting my, because one of the things is that when I went to that Spanish supermarket, I very much was interested in a lot of the food there that's not available at the other places like Market Basket or something like that. But I wasn't sure that I should be. It's stupid, but I felt like I don't know if I thought it was going to be more difficult for me to go in there. And
you just ask. You see something that you're interested in, say, what is this? How do you cook it? How do you, how do you use it? Next time you want to go to the Spanish store, come get me. We'll go together. And then you get acclimated. You ask the questions. And Basket carries a lot of our foods too. So you can pretty much, all the markets are carrying the international foods from all over. But if you want to go into a Spanish food store, corner store, La Bodega, all you do is what is that? How do you cook that? How do you eat that? How do you prepare that? And they'll be more than happy to tell you. And you try it. Go to the next time, pick something else out. So don't be afraid. I'm telling you, it's delicious.
Yeah, I definitely want to start getting more out there and maybe exploring a little bit more of these parts of town, which most people where I live don't do stuff like that. So I'm hoping to do that.
Yeah. The us and thems.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
I really, really appreciate this. I will see you around.
See you around, Chad.
If you have any comments, concerns, or even something you want to educate me on, please email me at roomtogrowwithchad@gmail.com. Thanks for growing with me. See you when I see you.